Use Retainage to hold back a percentage of the customer or vendor payments until a milestone is met or the job is complete, giving you more financial control over your projects. Retainage is an organization-wide feature, so you'll need to enable the feature in your JobTread settings. Within your general settings, locate the Job Settings section, and then turn on the Track Retainage toggle. Now you can set your default retainage percentage. Don't worry if different jobs have different retainage percentages, you can always override this percentage per job. Then you have the option to set a default retainage cost code and cost type. A retainage budget item will be added to your job budget, so you can define the cost code and cost type for that line. If you leave these blank, the retainage cost item will default to the uncategorized code and type, or whatever is on the top of your code and type list. Make sure that you save these changes at the bottom of your screen though to apply them. Now let's go ahead and create a new job. I'll head into the job directory and then click plus job on the top right. I'll choose my customer for that job, and then we'll see the option to toggle retainage on or off for the job. The job defaults to the retainage percentage that I designated in my organization settings, and I can change the percentage for each job as needed. Now again, not to worry if you have certain vendors that you want to set a different retainage percentage for, we can change it per document as well. So let's just go ahead and click Create Job. Fantastic. Now we'll head into our job budget next. I have not estimated this job yet, so I'm going to quickly add in a budget template from my catalog. And then I'll add my budget to a proposal to get it approved by my customer. Almost done. All right, we'll approve it on their behalf. And great. Now we have sold the job, we can start to send customer and vendor documents to see our retainage in action. Let's head back to our budget. If you're using retainage, I recommend turning on 2 additional columns in your budget to track the retainage. Click the gear icon above your budget to open the budget view settings. Then scroll down the list and locate the columns pertaining to retainage. One is retainage cost and the other is retainage price. Click the gray toggle to turn them each on. Then click and drag the double arrows to reorder them in your budget. I like having retainage cost in the costing section after the bills column. And I also like putting retainage price in the invoicing section after the invoiced column. All right, click Save to save your changes. You can save them to your current view, or you can click Save As to create and save a new budget view. We are now set up to begin creating either vendor bills or customer invoices. Let's start with vendor bills. We can create a new document by clicking plus document on the top right, and then choose the vendor bill template. So I'll choose my bill. Now select the vendor for the bill. Then choose the budget items that we want to include on this bill. We can also enter the total amount for each item. Now you'll notice that there's a retainage section at the bottom which shows how much is going to be withheld from the default retainage percentage. Now you can always click and override those numbers if you need to, or you can just click Create. Now here's our bill for the plumbing. We will see that 10% retainage is applied at the bottom. Now maybe for this particular vendor, you're not going to have retainage applied, so you can always turn retainage off if you'd like, or you can even update the percentage directly on the document. Now let's pretend that we cut a check to the vendor and record a payment. All right, we'll click Save, and now we have a paid bill. Now let's check out our budget and see how this is reflected. Notice that a retainage cost item was automatically created with a small piggy bank icon. Nothing is shown in the estimating portion of that item because we're not going to be estimating for retainage. We are mostly tracking retainage within the job costing or invoicing phases on our budget, where money is actually moving. So here we have the withheld or retained amount shown in the retainage line in the bills column. This is the total of all retainage held across all vendors and all items. Additionally, the retained cost column will show the amount retained per cost item, which is helpful when finalizing cost items. Now, there is one other place that you can look to see how much was retained, and that is within your Reports tab for the job. Here, you'll notice a Cost by Vendors section. This will list the total amount withheld for each vendor. Okay, now let's say it's time to release the retainage to the vendor at the end of the project. Create a vendor bill by clicking plus document, and then select the vendor bill template. Choose the vendor that we want to release the retainage to. Now you'll notice that you have a new bill source called Retainage Release. You will see how much was retained for this particular vendor, and then you can even change the amount that you'd like to release in the total field. When you're ready, click Create. The total retained amount will be added to the new bill, so you can record a payment. Now save your payment record, and we will have successfully recorded that we released retainage. If I head back to my budget and scroll to the right, you will notice that we no longer have a retained amount listed for bills. We can also see this reflected in our job reports. Now let's walk through the customer-facing retainage on invoices. This is all going to be logged on our invoicing section of the budget. As we invoice customers, we're going to allow the customer to withhold a certain amount until the job is complete. Let's create a new document and choose the customer invoice template. Maybe my initial invoice is for 15% of the job. Great. Now you'll see how much is going to be retained at the bottom. We'll click Create, and of course we can override the retainage amounts if we need to. Let's go ahead and send it to the customer. Let's say that the customer paid us via check, so I will actually manually record this payment quick. Perfect. We have a paid invoice. I want to show you an example of having retainage applied to multiple invoices so we can release them all at once. So let's go ahead and create an additional invoice by creating a new document, choose the invoice template, and then add a progress percentage. Once again, we will record a payment on this invoice as well. All right, now that we have two paid invoices, both having retainage withheld, we can take the next step. Let's head back to our budget, where we're going to notice that the total retainage amount is listed in the retainage cost item, as well as distributed across the cost items in the retained price column. Visit your Job Reports tab to see the retained amounts listed in your Income Report section. Once the job is complete, we can ask our customer to release the retainage. So we will click plus document and then select the customer invoice template. Now I want the source of that invoice to be retainage release. Here we'll see two invoices listing the retainage, and we have the total retainage release amount at the bottom. Click Create, and the retainage amounts will be listed on an invoice that's ready to send to the customer. Let's record the payment for the customer. Now they have released the retainage to you for this job. When we head into our reports again, we are going to see that the final retained amount is paid. Total retainage amounts can also be viewed on a job-by-job basis in the job directory. Simply click on the gear icon to edit the view, and then search for the fields called Retainage Cost and Retainage Price. Toggle these on and then save your changes to view retainage held back per job. Now we hope you enjoy the clarity of tracking retainage in your jobs to ensure that the amount you hold back is fully released at the end of the project. If you have any questions, please contact your success manager or email support@jobtread.com.